Stephen Coleman, Chief Investment Officer at Daedalus Capital, owns Apple's shares worth $3 million. And Stephen joins me now from St. Louis. Stephen, welcome to Bottom Line. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Steve Jobs' health problems, they have been serious and they have been well known. Still, were you surprised when you heard yesterday's announcement?
No, I was expecting it to happen at some point because his biography comes out in the fall, and it seemed like a swan song.
Stephen, the new CEO, Tim Cook, he has Steve Jobs' blessing. What does Cook need to do going forward? Does he leave Apple on autopilot, or does he step from Steve Jobs' immense and some would say intimidating shadow? Does he become a risk taker like Jobs was?
Well, Steve Jobs is not gone, first of all. He became chairman. He remains an employee and he remains a director. So he will be very much involved. As for Tim Cook, he's been a visionary in his own right. The things he's done for the Apple supply chain have been phenomenal. And the only difference between being CEO and being chief operating officer is the CEO is appropriately the guy that is supposed to fly to China to sign the deal with China Mobile and enjoy the big dinner and the photo ops and all of that sort of thing. Steve Jobs is out of that picture, but he's still very much a part of Apple's picture.
What are Apple's next set of challenges? How does it stay ahead of the competition? And how can Tim Cook and his lieutenant show investors and consumers that Apple can still deliver without Steve Jobs at the helm?
Well, I've owned the stock for 7.5 years. And so I've been on every one of those quarterly earnings calls. And Tim Cook has run every single one of those calls for the last 7.5 years. And out of those many calls, Steve Jobs was only on 2 of them. So from my point of view, Tim Cook has been there in a leader's chair for a very long time. So I think for those who are new to the stock, I would say welcome to yesterday, because that's the way it's been going. Steve Jobs has a great gift for exciting, talented people to produce their best and give their best to Apple. That will continue under Tim Cook.
Right.
But I think more importantly, I'm staring at yesterday, not tomorrow, because it's always been Tim Cook running it.
Stephen, with so many products in the pipeline, can Tim Cook now set his sights overseas? Last quarter, the company's sales in China rose more than 6 times to nearly $4 billion from the year earlier.
You nailed it on that one. China is absolutely the great opportunity. They have less than 1% market share in phones in China. And that is just going to be a tremendous growth opportunity. And here we're staring at a company that has $100 billion in revenue and 125% earnings growth for the quarter that just ended in June. We have nothing like that to compare it to, but then you stare at the opportunity of 1% market share in China and you go, my goodness, I don't know how big it can get, but it's going to be a lot bigger than it is.
What did Steve Jobs learn from his failures?
Well, he doesn't fail often, so I'm not sure how much failure he's actually experienced. I will say that he considers, and I don't consider this a failure, but what he considered a failure was his inability to properly communicate his vision back in '85 when he got canned, because he had a vision for what Apple could be, which was a sort of safe haven for genius, a place where people could grow, where a company could grow at 100% compounded a year. He articulated that vision in a Playboy interview in '85, and I'm sure it scared the daylights out of his directors.
Stephen, how do Apple's competitors view Mr. Jobs' resignation, do you think?
Oh, I'm sure they're all delighted that he no longer has the CEO title, but I can assure you, all that's really happened here is that Steve Jobs doesn't have to spend a fair amount of time on an airplane shaking hands and doing photo ops. He'll be back at Palo Alto designing great products. So from my standpoint, I think the amount of energy that he will devote to creating just incredible new products is going to be even higher. And Tim Cook gets to get on the plane.
Tony Ursillo of Loomis Sales says that even under Steve Jobs' successors, Apple has a shot at becoming a $1 trillion company in 5 years. Is he right?
Yeah, I'd say 3 to 5.
Well, where will
and by trillion, I mean market cap.
Yeah, absolutely.
You talk about $1 trillion market cap? Yeah, because all we're doing is talking about a stock going up essentially 2.5 to 1 from here.
Yeah.
And Apple's done that rather consistently. I was there at $11 a share in February of 2004. It's now $3.70 a share. And so what you see from the investor community is that the real focus is not on Steve Jobs' health,
Yes.
It's on Apple's health. And as long as Apple is healthy, the stock rises. And they're as healthy now as they've ever been.
Stephen, about 30 seconds left. Where will Apple's stock price be at the end of the year?
By the end of the year, I'd be very surprised if it weren't above 600.
All right. Stephen Coleman, Chief Investment Officer, Daedalus Capital, joining us from St. Louis.